Hello, I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking for FinextraTV, bringing you part of our Predict 2026 series. And I'm joined by Barry Rodrigues, Executive Vice President, Payments at Finastra. And we're talking about several topics. We're going to be looking at payments modernization, real-time payments, cross-border payments, and what is a discussion looking ahead into the future without mentioning AI. So we're going to be looking at AI in 2026 and beyond. So Barry, after that big introduction on topics, welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Debbie. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And let's start with the payments modernization. It's no secret that legacy can be a big challenge for banks, particularly when we look at how regulation is constantly changing, customer expectations too, always evolving. So how would you balance, in your opinion, what would you say are the risks of remaining with legacy versus the benefits of modern payment solutions?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, right? I mean, really, when you think about it, the industry is moving so fast. The rate of change is accelerating. The risks of staying on legacy software, for the most part, is you're on monolithic applications that take a long time to upgrade, not easy to upgrade. When you have to scale them, you have to have very heavy lifts to scale, etc. And then also the resilience aspects of what's going on in the industry. When I look at payments, regulators are expecting banks to be able to recover from a failure in payments in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. And that really, and you have a legacy architecture to be able to find out where the cause of the issue was and fix it. All those things take an immense amount of time. When you compare it to a modern architecture, you can scale much faster. You can have backup capabilities, right? You can have multi-cloud solutions that allow you to move from one hyperscaler to another. Dramatic improvement in the resilience, and then you can also set up your architecture to scale when you need to peak at different times of the day. Not even, whereas historically you need to have architecture that was always on at the maximum capacity you need to use it. Here you can scale up, scale down. And then the last thing I would say is, the ability to on-ramp and off-ramp solutions, right? So when you have a legacy architecture, the ability to bring on new payment types, new solutions, stablecoins, central bank digital currencies, etc., it's a very heavy lift. But when you actually move to a API-first architecture, the ability for you to be able to on-ramp as well as off-ramp old technology you don't want is much, much faster.
Well, so I'm hearing a lot about adaptation, agility, speed. And there, of course, there is so much change, and there's so much change expected of financial institutions.
Right.
And if we look globally, we see the payments industry changing dramatically. How would you say those changes are supporting real-time payments? And ultimately, what's the impact on the financial institutions and their customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think real-time payment is interesting, right? Because right now, 80 countries around the world are affecting real-time payment schemes. And the reason is pretty simple. You and I work in a real-time world now. We don't want to wait for 3 days for a payment to go through. If you want to pay your taxes, you want at 11:59 before the tax window closes, you should be able to do it. Secondly, I think governments around the world are on a mission to make payments more seamless, more instant, more cheap, more available to people that need it most. Today, if you can only afford to send $100 overseas to a parent or a child who needs it, you're probably paying 5-6%. Whereas if you're a massive corporation, you're paying virtually 1 or 2 basis points. And so I think leveling that whole playing field, making payments more instantaneous for everyone is important. And so when you look at it, the days of batch payments are gone. And so now domestic schemes are driving. We did immediate payments. We did with Barclays, we lit up the first immediate payment scheme in 2008 at Finastra in the UK. And the limits at the time, I think, were £100. And now it's £100 million you can do. So these are scaling. They're moving from retail to corporate. And then what you're also finding is that cross-border is now increasingly connecting to immediate payment schemes. So you can now send money cross-border, and instead of it going into a local clearing system, can connect to an immediate payment rail so the corporate gets immediate value when the money reaches the destination market. So a lot changing in the world of immediate payments.
And I'm going to pick up on that cross-border changes that you've just mentioned there. And as a whole, as an umbrella view on cross-border payments where they are now, what are the technologies that you see currently enabling this change?
Yeah, I mean, cross-border is fascinating, right? So we spend a lot of our time on cross-border payments. our GPP product actually is able to process cross-border payments at efficiency rates of 99% straight-through processing, which is really important for us because if you're sending a payment cross-border and it needs to be received immediately, connect to that immediate payment rail I was talking about, it doesn't help if it only goes through seamlessly 50% of the time. And so we focus on the cross-border piece, but I do see the cross-border rails moving and evolving. Horizon 1, the way I like to call it, was really SWIFT, right? SWIFT, the way SWIFT was set up, correspondent banking, etc. Horizon 2 is really when you think about alternate rails that came up, like MasterCard, Visa, Partio. We enable some of those cross-border rails to give the banks choice to actually have alternatives to SWIFT. But then we look at Frontier 3 now, and that's really stablecoins, right? Stablecoins have an opportunity to fundamentally disrupt. The way I like to think about, Horizon 1, Horizon 2, they were more like faster horses. I think digital currencies have the ability to be the automotive of cross-border payments. And whether it's a stable coin, whether it's a central bank digital currency, there's a huge opportunity now to enable the movement of coin to coin and then instant settlement on either side, the on-ramping, the off-ramping. Clearly, you have to accommodate regulatory requirements, AML, KYC. So it's not a simple thing. But one of the things we just did was we announced a partnership with Circle, which is the largest issuer of US dollar coins. And they have now worked on several corridors over the last few years through a Circle payment network with the regulators in each of those corridors. And I think it's very progressive, and you're starting to see this progress more and more. And I think we will see more of it as we move into next year quite aggressively.
So interesting. Things are moving so quickly as well. And of course, what discussion on 2026 can we have without mentioning AI?
Right.
In this case, Gen AI.
Yeah.
What practical use cases are you seeing that will take us into 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, I think, AI and Gen AI are very prevalent in our business model today. We are looking at the ones that can scale and scale aggressively, can bring value to us, efficiency to us and to our bank partners, but also in terms of our bank operations. I'll give you some examples. First is obviously in code generation. We're using GitHub Copilot to help us with code generation. Clearly, you have to have great QA on the back end, but it can help us generate code much faster than we were doing before. Secondly, when it comes to defects, we've been in operations and running payment hubs for 40 odd years. There probably isn't a defect that comes up that we haven't seen somewhere before. So the ability to interrogate that database for an engineer when a defect comes to them and solve it is fantastic, right? And so they can interrogate the database. They can say, here are 3 like defects that came up historically, and here's the fixes. We found that it improves the efficiency of an engineer fixing defects by 50%, which is fantastic. And then the third level is when we think about, how the banks use our software, right? We are now going to come out relatively quickly with something on the front end of our payment hub. When a wire room operator goes in every day and the first job they're going to do is see where all the payments failed, last night's payments. And it failed because someone input a wrong number, the SWIFT code was wrong, the BIC code was wrong, many reasons. But the screens are very complicated, and for that operator to find out where that payment failed and fix it takes quite a while. As we move forward now, they'll be able to go in with a natural language prompt and say, show me all the payments that failed last night. They'll get listed. Click on one, show me where it failed. It'll take them straight to that place, and we'll recommend a change to actually improve it. We won't make the change for the bank, because clearly that's for the bank to make a decision. But you think about the efficiency that brings, not only in terms of the time the person spends on a mundane task, but also from a bank perspective, being able to train people up to use the software, which is massively complicated, 3,000 configurations you can use in our GPP payment hub, takes a long time. But if you actually have a little bit easier a front end for them to operate, you can train them up much faster to actually identify payments that have failed and fix them, etc. So, look, I think it's going to be a game changer for all of us as we move forward, and we're super excited. We are focusing on the few but more scalable Gen AI initiatives and agentic initiatives for our bank customers.
And again, I'm listening and I'm just absorbing what you're saying. And I think we've almost come full circle again in our Predict 2026, because we're talking about speed, agility, problem solving, scaling up again. So exciting things to come in 2026.
Yes, and I'd add one more on that.
Yes.
Resilience. Resilience is so key in this stage of the payments game. Regulators expect the resilience to be there. And so one of the other things we're focusing on is not just cloud and cloud hosting, but it's multi-cloud. Because at the end of the day, I do think the hyperscalers need to work a bit more together now to understand that everyone is going to ultimately have a multi-cloud solution where you do deploy in the cloud. So yes, resilience, in addition to everything you mentioned, massively important.
Great, wonderful. So on that note, we will end on resilience. And a big thank you, Barry, for joining us and just sharing all your knowledge and expertise on the subject. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, and thank you, Debbie. It's always great talking to you, and look forward to chatting again soon.